Good afternoon, QA engineers and those who are planning to become one soon. Today, you're going to see in a couple of minutes some of the best interview preparation video that you could ever possibly find on YouTube. And just FYI, I want you guys to remember that this is a part of the series of the interview preparation videos that we have created for you. Link to an entire playlist you can find right here. But before I proceed, let me quickly introduce myself so you will know who is going to be interviewing two other amazing QAs and SDETs from the actual market who work in Microsoft and variety of the corporations in the USA. My name is Sergey Kromchenko. I'm a founder of the Codify Bootcamp. I've been working in the field of IT for about 10 years, but these days I'm helping people like you to become a QA engineer from scratch or to improve your existing skills. I've worked as an engineer, lead manager, and a senior engineering manager of SDET for the last 10 years. But now we're gonna kick it off. But remember that you guys gotta enjoy it. Hit the like button below. Subscribe to our Instagram and Telegram communities where I share a lot more news that I can legally share right here. Let's get started.
Okay, sure. So my name is Angelina, and it's a huge honor for me to be here and share with you about my experience. I'm a software test engineer. I used to work in Microsoft, and I have automated myself from Microsoft, I guess, because I have automated the test cases for them for the Office 365. And now I am working for the company in California, but I am based in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Nice.
Remote job. Remote.
Um,
Mr. Arthur, how about you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Or are you done?
I guess I'll take it.
I guess you're done.
Sure.
Yeah.
My name is Arthur Ajumoglian. So I call myself a bunch of different things, but I'll just go off of quality assurance engineer, QA engineer. Right now I'm working with the County of Los Angeles on their new election management system. So I've had the joy of learning about voting and all the laws and everything that goes into that. So that's been really exciting. So that's kind of where a lot of my experience has been. I kind of finished the program, got a job, and I've been at that same place ever since. So yeah, I'm glad to be a resource for anyone and help any way I can.
yeah, nice.
Thanks a lot, Arthur. Thank you. Looks like you've lost a little bit of weight.
Yeah,
Did they?
I lost
Is that job
about 30 to
stressful?
40 pounds. No, yeah, super stressful, drinking a lot of alcohol. No, yeah. I had home too. It's great. It's not. Took it upon myself, after studying for so many hours in front of a computer. I was like, let's get healthy, hit the gym. Yeah.
Nice. That's the way. That's the way. Awesome. Well, in this case, let's kick it off. Usually on all types of interviews, the first question is tell me about yourself. And I think we've been answering this question for ages. Does any one of you guys want to take this one?
So, my name's Arthur. So my experience is, I've had two positions so far. I'm about, I would say, 2 or 3 years into my experience as a QA engineer. Initially, I was working at a company called Abbott. They kind of had a lot of proprietary technology, used a lot of Excel. I wrote some test cases. Luckily, I was able to use kind of my automation skills in Java and Selenium to write some automation scripts that actually simplified my jobs. Specifically, one of them was we had a very tedious task of, downloading manuals from this database that we had, and then putting them into the correct folder. So basically, that would take me about 6 to 8 hours roughly every release. So every 2 weeks, I would spend a day doing this. So I was able to automate that using my, Java and Selenium skills. Currently, I'm working for the County of Los Angeles. So my job, I actually don't even run test cases anymore. I just write test cases and other people run my test cases. So that's always fun. And I'm kind of playing a lot of middleman. So recently I've been working a lot with kind of refining acceptance criteria, figuring out what clients actually want. So fine tuning requirements, making sure that those are put into user stories. And then I write test cases on those and then we manually test those. Unfortunately, with new software, the environment's changing every day. So we don't have much opportunities for automation yet, but fingers crossed in the future. So we use a lot of like Azure DevOps for that. Obviously, we're using Chrome and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment.
Azure DevOps right here. Angelina did tell us about it.
Yeah. That
You give
was
us a good speech.
quite amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great answer, Arthur. I think who are the clients? Is it a actual LA County or
It's
is it
actually
from
LA
Biden?
County. Yeah, it's actually LA County. Yeah, so I get to work with people, and it's pretty amazing because I get to work with people who've been working at the county, who've been running elections for 20 or 30 years. So I get like it feels like if you were talking to like LA's like the Lakers coach, like you talk to the coach on a regular basis. So I get to learn all this stuff about how voters are processed, how they're precincted, addresses, how do we like make sure that this person is real. And you know how voter fraud is a big issue. So there's a lot of stuff like that,
Yeah.
validating that this is a real voter. And oh God, we're working on this data migration thing where we're trying to move our database from one place to another. So there's just all this stuff happening at the same time. It's a really big project. And unfortunately, our last vendor wasn't able to deliver. So now we have a whole new vendor and we're starting the process over again. So there's
Oh,
yeah, so it's so this is the second time around. So we've kind of learned from our mistakes, and a lot of that, interestingly, had to do with the vendors, the developers, not knowing what what our client actually needed. So it's kind of an issue of the requirements weren't fine-tuned enough. This is what they were expecting. They ended up getting something else, and there were certain requirements that were so misunderstood that we basically had to part ways at that point.
makes sense. Awesome. That's a great answer. I can definitely say that. I mean, majority of the answer was about your projects and your experience with those projects. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You give a couple of words about yourself and then you start talking about your experience because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, they don't want to hear about how much I love going hiking, right?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And
All right.
adding a picture to your resume won't save the city. Not gonna help you out.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of Europeans are actually shocked when they come to US. They apply for jobs with their picture on their resume, and usually I tell them, no, it's a red flag. You cannot put a picture on resume. That just doesn't work here. We're in the
Yeah.
United States. Wouldn't add pictures.
Unless you're doing some kind of like modeling job or something, then I guess
Yeah,
pictures.
right.
Exactly. That would probably make sense. Great. All right. Let's, Angela,
No, sorry. It's okay.
do,
I was
do you want
saying,
to answer?
yeah, I was just saying that on LinkedIn, when you are applying to different jobs, um, you can see that after sort of information, they're asking for your picture. Like you can download your picture here, and then they're gonna ask you for a few more really private questions. So it means it's a fraud because basically a very professional and stable IT company, they don't need your picture. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they're, sending the pictures and driving license and sometimes even the green card copies or passports, which I
Yeah.
can say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I was thinking about this question too, I think like you try to, well, I guess it's easier once you have more experience, but I think one thing is to kind of highlight with like metrics, like how many test cases did you write during your job, or even like not even the test cases, but what improvements did you make to the process itself, so that you can showcase that you not only do things the way that they are, but you're also continually trying to improve them. But that's not, as a QA people, we're trying to improve the process as well, the process of testing, the process of product development. So I think that's anything you can do to kind of highlight how you improve things, it's a big plus.
Exactly. And that's one of the interviews that we should definitely have today. How did you improve? What did you improve, and how did you improve it in your current company? That's the interview killer, honestly, because you show your achievements. As you said, you show how better are you than the average QA engineer on the market.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, you
So
just need to tell yourself.
exactly. Does any one of you guys want to answer this one, or shall I, or shall you?
I can
Yeah.
start it
Oh,
off
oh,
if you like. Oh,
okay.
actually, go ahead, Angelina. Ladies
Bye.
first.
Okay, well, glad for the answer, but yeah, not for the first one, I guess. But
Yep.
yeah, during my interview for the company that I work, right now, they ask me this question: what have you achieved while working in Microsoft? Because of course it was mentioned in my resume, and they were very interested because of that. And I mentioned that, of course, I work in a big team and it's a big company. I had a few managers, a few seniors, a lot of developers. So we have achieved like a huge thing while working together. But I was saying that me and the team where I work, the team that I work with, we being the part of the team who actually created and worked on the Copilot and Office 365 new AI features. And I was the only one engineer in the team who automated the test, like task script, like test cases, everything that they had before for Office 365. They never used automation before, so I'm the one who actually started automation in Microsoft regarding Office 365. So, and this is the answer that actually blew minds of the managers who were taking care of the interview process, and I saw that that was a hoop, and that was amazing for me, and I was so excited to tell them about it. Like, I am that engineer who actually started the automation in Microsoft, because before that they were doing that manually. That's why I'm joking sometimes that I have automated myself, but I'm proud of it. I'm proud to automate myself out from Microsoft, but I'm gonna be that one engineer. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, the trick is you gotta
Nice.
make sure the automation breaks every once in a while, so they have to. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, for me, you know, as I told you guys earlier, at Abbott, I automated a process that would take 6 to 8 hours. Another thing was, you know, we were having a lot of issues. We'd get like backlog items, PBIs, as we call them, and we would be confused as to what's testable and not testable. So I basically recommended that we introduce a simple tag, UAT ready tag, and run a query on it. So then we can separate it by teams, so make things more efficient. Another thing, maybe not so QA recommended, but you know, we have a lot of testers that are accounting people that aren't necessarily as technical. So sometimes when we were testing this new environment, they didn't know how to navigate through it. So I kind of took it upon myself to make some instructional videos. I put like a little intro, put a little outro, and then broke it down by what you're trying to do. So that way, you know, the different users of the system could familiarize themselves.
Nice.
Nice. That's a good one. That's a pretty good one. Makes a lot of sense. Cool. For myself, I'll answer from two perspectives. First one would be from the engineer perspective. I think let's start with the warm up that I've migrated our team from multiple older versions of CI/CD, such as from Circle CI to the Code Fresh, then from the Code Fresh to the GitHub Actions. And the biggest one was building the key infrastructure for our entire team from scratch. That has been saving so far $220,000 per year for my company on an annual basis, which has been running for 4 years so far. So far we have saved almost $1 million for the company, and the infrastructure, including dynamically generating AWS instances. They utilize Docker containers. They utilize multiple AWS tools and the custom reporting website. And yeah, usually when I specify those digits, like $220,000 per year, people are like, "Oh wow, why don't you have it as the headline on your resume?"
Yeah.
And from the second perspective, as the leader or manager, I'm most proud of the teams that I built. I think the largest team that I built is more than 10 people right now, and some of people who used to work with are now became managers, and that's what I'm mostly proud of. Especially, I'm proud of the students like you guys who are rocking this QA world, because you've been working and automating things in Microsoft and LA County and all over the world for a majority of the companies.
Yep.
Great. Let's move forward to the next one. All right. I'm gonna ask you guys to share the most interesting questions or those that you remember from your latest interviews. And if you will need to take time, I can ask a list of questions that I have from all of our students. that have received 7 job offers in the last 4 weeks, because I have wrote all of those questions down.
Okay.
Let me know if you guys have any, and if not, I will move forward.
I do have one. I remember I had one that was pretty interesting. They said, if you have 3 tasks that are all high priority, how will you decide which task to take on?
3 tasks that all are high priority. Great question. That's a really good one. So it depends on who did decide that those are high priority based on requirements. If we have the product owner who creates those tasks and assigns the priority to them, I would go to that person and talk to that person to better understand the priority from their perspective. Because when we say high, I mean, there is no high point 1, high point 2, high point 3, but that person will have it in their mind. So I would definitely double check it. But although as 3 of them, the question is if we really need all 3 of them to be tested in this current release process, after checking with the person, I would just go one by one with 3 of those, or possibly bring more resources from the site if we do not have enough time for me to test all of those high priorities. Because whatever it takes, if they're high priority, they got to be tested. And you, as the engineer, you got to find the way to do so. So that would probably be my answer.
Mhm. Makes sense. Yeah.
Based on your look, I thought you were not satisfied, Art.
No, it's I think for me, I mentioned like product owner too, or maybe speak to a manager, but I think I also like mixed in some humor with it, and I said I would just drink a bunch of Red Bull and finish them all, like that night. So and then they
I
laughed.
remember
And I
that.
think
I remember that
kind of
one.
helped loosen them up a little bit, Yeah.
I remember that one. That was on this interview with Arthur. By the way, if you guys did not see it, please check it out. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was a fun interview. That was the second interview too, so it was I was excited. I was glad it worked out.
Yep. All right, Angelina, did you have what were the interesting questions that you had on your latest interview, or some of your latest, if you remember?
I wouldn't say like I had some interesting questions. As you are going through a bunch of YouTube videos and listen to the people who are just, saying the questions they were asked, I was waiting for those questions, and this is what I actually had. And I had interviews in big companies. I've been interviewed by uh, like huge companies in the United States and also Microsoft. And then I was also interviewed by
Give us a name.
yeah, right. So, and what I figured that usually in small IT companies like startups, they are asking how to file a bug report, how to write a test case, what is grooming, why we need a sprint planning. But in big companies, they are asking more like, what is your proficiency in this? And how we can use Python with Word. Do you have any knowledges with Visual Studio Code? They are asking more like general but complex questions, and in small IT companies, they are more strict to the process because they are building, their process right now in the company. So they want to make sure you are the one who understand what is what. Because if they're gonna, tell you how to file the bug after you're gonna be hired, that's gonna be pretty bad.
Absolutely. Now, all right, but then I have quite a few questions. And actually, the last one, it was very broad question. On one side, it sounds very simple, but it's so broad that depending on what details you specify, you will explain the level of the knowledge that you have and of the processes in your current company. And the question sounds like, when you get the new feature, how do you proceed with the manual and automation testing all the way until feature gets to production? And I'm like, whoa, that's pretty broad. So pretty much explain the question says in a human language, it says, hey, tell me about an entire testing and the release process that involved to get feature into production. And you have to talk about all of the environments, where you tested, how you tested, types of testing, how does release work in your company, and how does it get to production. I would honestly would include the way the release is happening, such as canary set, where we distribute 5 to 50% of the where we distribute the new code version to 5 to 50% of the servers, and wait for a couple of hours, and only then let it go to 100% of the production servers. So that's kind of very deep question, and do you guys want to take it? It's going to take a while to answer it if you want to take it.
Yeah, this is.
If not,
I can go ahead with it. So basically, the way it works is, we'll have like the Friday before, we've been kind of playing around with the schedule, but the Friday before we get release notes, I have access to all of the product backlog items, or PBIs. I go through them, and kind of the first step at this point, it's gone through QA on the development team, but now it's part of the counting. So basically, it enters what we call a UAT. So it's our lower UAT. So this is fake data. There's no real voter information or anything like that. So my job is to
good.
I go through the you don't want to leak that information, right? So you go through that. And make sure we've had a lot of issues with acceptance criteria that's not clear. So first thing is I start sending emails like, hey, what does this mean? I get everything nailed down. Then I write my test cases. Then I pass those test cases on to my testers. They complete testing them. And then once that's done, technically it doesn't even go to our upper UAT environment yet. It keeps going on like this until eventually we've completed all the features. Then we move on to an upper UAT where we're going to use real production data. And then once we're done with that, we move on to mock trial, where we'll have a fake election that happens with voter data, everything. And then from that point, then we release it to production. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
That was from a senior perspective, or, like manager's perspective, because regular human QA, I'm going to get stuff like that as DLC or something.
Yeah, definitely. That was a pretty good answer. Yeah, I think it was related to the features. How do the features get tested? Got it. And who writes the test cases in your company, or if you guys have any test cases?
So basically, we get a certain amount of test cases from the dev team. So they have their own QA test, and then they release those to us to just show kind of like as also like kind of a being transparent about how they've tested. But basically, it's me, and I'm a member of what we call the business operations team. So there's me, and 4 other QA engineers. We all have our sections. I have voter and GIS, which is geographical data, basically. So those are my sections. So I write test cases for those sections. And, we do we do positive testing, the happy path testing, then we do negative testing. And then I'm always just trying to break it. So I'll do really weird stuff too, and that's and they just kind of don't really have too many requirements. It's just kind of find all the bugs you can. It kind of goes down that way. And then we obviously try to, I try to also get the difficult part is we have how the system has been, right? And we're developing a new system. So I have to get the input from our testers who are county people, not only on is this right or is this wrong, but how should this look? So it's always kind of like a back and forth. It's not really so one way. It's oftentimes goes the other way as well. And they're like, this doesn't make any sense, especially with like you're dealing with GIS and a lot of like geographic stuff. There's certain information they're very expert, they're SMEs, and they have very deep knowledge of these things. I don't necessarily have that.
Yeah.
So I have to juggle connecting the two.
Absolutely. That's cool. And when I asked about if you guys have test cases, I did it because I used to work for Verizon Digital Media Services, and we did not have any test cases. We would automate things on the fly. Like everything had to be automated before it goes to production. So we would write test automation in parallel with the development team creating new features. And as soon as there is a UI, we just update all of the locators and fire it up.
Yeah, luckily
Wow.
we get the release, so I have the environment, and I can go through the UI. So that's kind of how we do it. And I'll click through, and I'll obviously I end up running the test myself manually first, and then I pass
Yeah.
it to other people. But from them, it's more getting like kind of that expert knowledge of how it should be or how it should function and how they want it to be, obviously.
Yeah, when I came to Microsoft, they didn't have any test cases at all for all Office 365. And it was pretty surprising for me because, and in this company, I would imagine that they have everything. So I am here and everything is ready for me to work, and there is no. So I started to write test cases by myself. I was going through the UI the same that you did, and I was just, going and clicking every button. And my manager, he liked to be specified. He liked all those little details, like a prompt window, click there, click here, on the right side of the screen, on the left side of the screen. So I was writing it by myself, and then I was automating it by myself. And here in my current job, we don't have test cases at all. Like, we have user stories, and our manager of technology, he does that the way I did in Microsoft. But yeah, we have just user stories, and we just have developers. They leave some comments. We work in Azure, and which is really comfortable for this kind of the planning and working. They just leave their comments, what they figured would be better to add to this feature, what would be better to cut off or something. So we just work with user stories, and we just tested. I'd say on a fly.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't imagine not having test cases. I feel like everything for us, like everything is tied to that test plan and like all the metrics pass fails. So it's like for us, it's a very big thing to have it all there.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine me like coming after Microsoft, writing test cases by myself, coming here, and it's totally different. And they have no test cases at all. Like, they have only user stories. And oh my goodness, that was, and I figure every company has, the own way of figuring out the things. And I'd say the things that the company has, like the workflow, is what their managers like. So everything depends.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I remember you saying that like when you're working at smaller companies or startups, they're much more flexible in the way that they do things. Whereas like when you're at bigger companies, it tends to be a lot more rigid and everything's kind of more strict in the process, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, on average, yeah, but as we can see in some cases, it's also like, hey, just get something done somehow. In a
Just get it done.
in a tiny yeah, in a tiny parts of the large teams that also happens. But on average, yeah, in large companies, usually it's more restricted. And in Lake County, I'm pretty sure it's very strict because it is a voting, especially it's a voting software of the Lake County, which is
Yeah,
sort of the military level.
yeah, I mean the thing that I struggled with too is like everything needs to be approved, you know? And there are certain things where it's like everything gets slowed down because it has to go through 3 or 4 people. So it's kind of like a battle of doing that. Even at Abbott, it was like I remember it was crazy. I remember how I told you I wrote that automation script, and they told me it would take 2 to 3 months before I could have it approved and used in the system. So I was kind of using it low key to run my task, but I technically wasn't supposed to because someone has to approve it. I was like, I'm not waiting 3 months to use this, you know? So it's like this weird thing that happens, but I can see how it can slow down the process. But in government, you need kind of, because they have audits. So people come and check and make sure everything is done up to board. So it's kind of required.
Yeah, should we cut that piece out where you said that you should have not ran it, but you ran it?
No, it's okay. I don't work there anymore.
Nice. Awesome. I won't leave your name and the link to your LinkedIn anyways.
Yeah.
Cool. Question coming from you guys, or shall I go with the one?
I've got one if you want it.
Sure. Let's go.
Let's see. One that I was really caught off guard was how would you foster good relationships with your fellow coworkers?
Ooh, nice. That involves a lot of alcohol.
That helped.
Pretty much painful question for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can
You want to
answer
take it,
that
Angela?
one. It's been a quite difficult experience for me to get into their culture and just to have a really nice working relationship with your partners and your coworkers, other engineers would be just to be yourself and not to be influenced by them and they are rude. If they are rude to you, you just should be nice. Just show your proficiency, like especially if they know that I'm coming from Microsoft. I'm trying to show the high level of my language, my attitude, my answers, my questions. I respect them, be respectful, and use the respectful tone of voice, and just be higher of all of that. But yeah, what I figure sometimes when you enter the job, some coworkers can be rude. So you just stay nice, positive, and respectful, and you're gonna win the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are good words.
Now, quick reminder that you guys gotta hit that big fat thumb up button below, subscribe to our channel, and you can join our Instagram and Telegram communities where you can see a lot more updates that are on our YouTube channel right here. And also, if you're interested in changing your career to QA or software development engineering in test, feel free to schedule a free call with me, link you can find in the description right below this video. Let's continue.
On my side, how to build a good relationship with the team, I would probably just support Angelina. Just be yourself, and become a part of the team. I'm a very friendly person. I never had any sort of accidents or any sort of cultural issues with the teams that I worked for. Usually, when you go through an interview, you will feel the vibe. You will feel the culture right away. If it's not your team, they will not hire you. You will not want to get hired by them. So throughout my experience, I could say just be yourself, enjoy it, become a part of the family. When you come to work, help people the way you want to get help from others. That's my mom told me when I was a kid. Treat people the way you want to be treated. That's it. That's the best advice that I have ever received in my life. Since then, I just help people without any expectations. And generally speaking, people are thankful. They just come back to me and always ask if I need any help, but I'm not even asking for it. So
Yeah.
that would probably be my way.
Right. Like to
Yep.
be easygoing, friendly, and always not mad but happy with everything, even with the problems that you have, and even if you stuck. This is even better, and this is what managers would like to see in you. Better than you gonna be like a super smart, and if you gonna get up in during the night, you're gonna say that code. It doesn't matter for them if you populate a good culture and vibe in a team, you're gonna stay there.
Yeah, I think also to add on to that, I think an important thing is like some people, you might have the issue where you're like, I want to be the best, I want to do the most, do this, and that actually could work against you in the sense that you have to remember you're part of a team. So like sometimes you have to take a step back and kind of help your team and support your team and like think about yourself second. And that way, like sometimes you might do a task you don't want to do, or you think you should be doing this, or you might not even completely agree with the direction everyone's going with. But for the sake of the team, it's more efficient and more productive that you kind of think about them. So I think being a team player is super important. Also, every once in a while, send a meme to somebody. I find that's very helpful. People love memes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are two
Absolutely.
things I think. Yeah.
Memes are the way to go.
Yep.
Great. Angelina, did you have a question from your side?
Yeah, the question from my side, I guess all the time is sort of not super easy question is what is your weakness? Like what is your weak point? And during one of my interviews, I said that my weak point is that I am expecting from other people what to do the job the way I do, because I love the good results. I appreciate, the process that should be done, and without like most of the mistakes. Of course, we're human beings, but I do expect from people what I expect from myself. And that would be my weakness. And the manager said, "Well, we're all people, and in our company, we do have some place for mistakes." And I was like, "Well, that's a good company."
That's true. That's true. Yeah, regarding weaknesses, I remember the last time when I got this question, that was back in 2016, 8 years ago. And the guy was kind of laughing. He asked me, like, "Hey, what's your weakness?" I was like, "Well, that's a good question. It's a tricky question, so I'll give you a tricky answer. All of us have weaknesses, and I did have mine. I was the person who would never say no, and I would get overloaded with work because of that. I did work it out. I do not have that issue anymore, and honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell you my weakness at this moment, but if you really want to know, I can give you a phone number of my ex-girlfriend. She will probably tell you quite a few.
That's a good one. That's a good
That's
one.
really
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think for
and
me,
joke makes work.
yeah, I think for me, I think it's being impatient. Like I'm trying to push it forward. I'm trying to get everything done. As soon as I get my stuff, I want to write test cases. I want them sent out. I think for me, the annoyance comes where I'm waiting for things, or maybe I'm sending a message to get some clarification on some acceptance criteria, and it takes me a few days to get a response. Like things like that drive me crazy. But I think part of me is kind of reminding myself that these people have multiple tasks and other things that they're doing. So what is it that I can do in the meantime? And then I can get back to this when, I'm able to move forward. So having multiple things that I can kind of bounce around between is how I've kind of worked around calming down that irritation that I get from time to time.
Yeah,
Yeah, usually
that's a
when
good one.
I don't get an answer like within 15 minutes, this is like a lot for me. Or even like 20 minutes, I'm saying, okay, this person is having a lunch. You should just keep going to something else and just think that you are allowed to have lunches.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point. All right. So one of our students recently got the senior QA engineer job offer. Just think of it. It's her
Wow.
first job. She got a senior QA engineer job offer.
Wow.
And and here's a list of questions that she had. Let me pick the best one. The one actually got her on a spot. What's your communication and leadership skills? As she was going for the senior QA position, and she would be the first one, they were expecting her to have some leadership skills, because in the future she will definitely become the lead, as she's already senior, and then they're going to hire some mid or junior level, and then boom, she's lead. She became a lead on the spot. So what's your communication and leadership skills? If you guys
That's
want to pick it,
we have
that's
a
both.
pretty good leader here running the test cases for the team, so I think he would answer first.
So kind of, my style is basically I'm very direct. I'm very direct. I'm very friendly, but I always tell people be brutally honest with me. Let's get it out there. Let's get it done. So my job is kind of like I try to communicate as much as possible. I send my messages early. I also try to make sure that people are comfortable too, because I don't want to be someone that they can't speak to, because then if you're this kind of authority figure, I've always seen like when I'm very kind of like comfortable around a leader, I tend to want to do more than if someone you're kind of afraid of or something. So being friendly, being available, supporting them any way that you can, and I think going the extra mile and letting them know that even especially when they make a mistake, just come and talk to me and we can solve the problem. I think at the end of the day, as QA engineers, as a leader, your job is you're problem solvers. So I'm not here to put anyone down or anything like that. But I think at the end of the day, I have one of my the guys that works at the county. His name is Philip George, and he's been working in the IT department forever. He's like, I kept pointing out things that were wrong, and he brought up a good point, and he told me, "You're bringing me problems, but I need solutions. So my thing is, if I'm ever going to bring someone a problem, or if you bring me a problem, try to bring a solution too. And if you can't, we can figure it out together. But as long as a team, we can figure out solutions, I think that's the most important thing. And that's what we're there to do.
Exactly. And this brought me some flashbacks from the past. When I was getting my first manager, or even I was going for a director position, I talked to one of my friends, and he's a VP. At that time, he was a VP of engineering or CTO in Santa Monica, one of the startups. And he gave me the advice that, yo, whenever you are bringing some issues to your lead or manager, never just bring the issues, come with a solution for it, because everyone can bring the issue. But if you come with a solution, that's going to show the difference. And that's how you're going to become a lead manager, director, and the next level executive. So totally with you, Art, totally with you. So I would say process-based question. If you are assigned to the project, what would be your approach? Senior QA engineer position.
Well, yeah, I can get that one. So, even like right now, we are working in the company using Azure DevOps, which is my favorite right now. And usually we used to, yeah, we used to assign QA assignee or developer right during the sprint planning or even grooming. But right now we have just a QA board and we pick it, whatever you see, whatever you like, seems interesting to you, you just pick it up. But if you have something left, with a lot of the points, it should be done, pretty fast. So if you got assigned, if you are a QA engineer, so basically you're going to have QA assignee, and you can create a query in Azure DevOps and choose QA assignee and then me, and it's going to show you all the user stories, tasks, bugs, and anything else that is assigned to you as a QA engineer. So I would, if that would be me answering this question, I would just say all the process that I know from the end, from the start to end, from the Azure DevOps. So this is basically what I do.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah, so that's how.
Yeah, Sergey. So for me, I think if I was coming in as a senior QA and I was working as like the lead of a team, I would first kind of look at how is the process currently? Is it running smoothly? I mean, if it's running super smoothly, maybe we don't have to do too much. We can keep going. But if there's kind of something that's slowing down the process, maybe we don't have enough resources. Maybe we're doing too much manual testing. We need to do more automation. So I kind of see where maybe, the user stories we're getting aren't very clear, and that's causing us to do a lot of back and forth. So I think going through each step and kind of looking at that, where is the bottleneck in there? Is it possibly, maybe we're not testing enough, or maybe, or maybe some of those QA engineers need some coaching. Maybe their quality of their test cases isn't high enough. Maybe they're not testing the correct things. So I think looking at it from a high level, looking at where's the slow point and trying to improve that is probably where I would be most valuable as a senior QA.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, guys. I agree with both of your answers.
I got one. This is one they asked me in the last interview also. They said, how do you deal with stress and tight deadlines?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think you deal with it with the Red Bull, right?
Or a bottle of vodka.
That's right. Yeah, usually with my manager, we have a joke that if we have a really something super tight, we just say, okay, I need some food for my brain to process. So yeah, usually first of all, come in with a joke and take it easy. Yeah, but Red Bull is a good idea, and coffee constantly.
and some yoga. Do some yoga. Yeah, I think from a more technical standpoint, I think the thing to point out is like if you're constantly dealing with like stressful like deadlines all the time, maybe something in the process needs to be looked at. Maybe like you said, Sergey, maybe you don't have enough resources. Maybe you've got 3 QA engineers doing the job of 5, so that's maybe something else that needs to be looked at. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would review, analyze, and then decide based on the issue that we're facing, because you shouldn't be constantly dealing with the stress. There's definitely something wrong with the process, and that should be reviewed. But
Well,
nowadays,
sorry.
Angelina,
If I can add, for me, works prioritizing things, because if I have like 5 points or 4 or 6 on the user story or the bug, so I know this is something that I need to take some time to process and to test. So usually I'm starting with those, of course. And sometimes if I work really hard and I concentrate on the problem, I can figure that faster. So I use less time on a big, problem, and then ending the sprint with some easy things. But of course, I can fix some easy things on a fly. If I want to like change my mind, don't think about that huge bug that we have. I go to another one and fix that one, go back to that one. But of course, prioritizing things for me, it works the best.
absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. Prioritization is the key. All right, metrics of success. That's the big one. What, in your opinion, are the metrics of success?
That's a good question. And I had a pretty similar one during the interview for the company where I work right now. They asked me about how did I succeed and what is success for me. So I said I succeed with automating test cases for Office 365. And success for me is when the project that you work on as a QA engineer at the day of the release. And in Microsoft, when we had the day of the release, when the Copilot went to the public, it was a huge day for all of us. And we felt ourselves happy and encouraged, and that you've done something that actually influenced the world. So, as an IT person, you should be confident in the project you're doing. You should love the project that you're doing, and to understand the importance and what it could bring for the people and for our future. So, we are pretty proud of ourselves. And success is something that you should see at the beginning of the project when you start making it together as the team, from the planning to maintenance. So, and then the release day is a huge day.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I think a big moment of success is kind of like making sure that we have enough test coverage. So making sure that we had test cases for 95, 99, whatever the criteria is, percentage of the system covered. Also, kind of making sure that all of the acceptance criteria that we had in our requirements was ultimately implemented or modified and then implemented into the system. Personally, for me, success is finding as many bugs as I can, which isn't necessarily, they don't like seeing this, but I like seeing as many bugs as I can find. But when I find a lot of bugs, then the devs look like they're not doing a great job. So it's kind of like a here or there. But that's my personal metric. But I think at the end of the day, making sure that the clients feel heard, which is like the county, making sure that all of the team members there that work every day that are going to use this system every day of their lives for probably 20 years, because that's how long they used the last system. I want to make sure that what they have is a very useful and productive tool for them to use. Yeah. So for me, that would be success.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And on my side, I'll speak from the perspective of the business owner, that clients first, team second, I third. So definitely clients or students should be the happiest people. They should be fully satisfied with the quality of the product. So this would help our business grow. Second of all, team should be happy. So our mentors should be happy with everything on their side. And third of all, myself. And if we would talk about exact metrics, I think those would be Number one, financial metrics and the job offer metrics in my business, because if students are happy, they're going to bring their friends. If we have a lot of people, the business is doing well, and the mentors are also happy because they can get raises based on their performance. So that would be success, in my opinion. Alrighty, I'm gonna look for the next question. If you guys let me know if you have one. Tell me about the biggest challenge that you had and how did you overcome it?
That's a pretty common question.
Yeah, I see neural connections. Yeah, running,
Thinking.
getting triggered all over the brain.
Yeah, that's a hard question
Oh,
for
challenge.
I've heard the question, I think, 4 times during different interviews, and it was always kind of
Yeah,
point where I got stuck to think about. Yeah.
yeah. Biggest challenge that you had. I can speak, so I can give you my answer while you guys are thinking if you want. That can give you some time to think and also bring other perspectives. The biggest challenge that I had is actually my biggest achievement, because when I worked for some company a certain time ago, there was a situation where my manager gave me the challenge that I never had in my life. It was completely out of my scope, and he was like, "Okay, we need a new infrastructure. I want you to build a new infrastructure." For whatever reason, he gave me that challenge. I'm a cheaper, so I was like, "Well, if I gotta build it, I'll find a way to build it." It took me 2 to 3 months to build a new infrastructure. That took that long because, number one, I never did it in the past. Number two, at certain point of the process, I have ran out of people with the scope of knowledge to answer my questions. So I had to find them myself, because even the DevOps manager was like, "Dude, now you know more about this stuff than I do, so I cannot help you here. Figure it out on your own." And third reason was because, on a side, I had to support releases, test automation framework, and the manual testing as well. But that was the biggest challenge. And how did I overcome it? Number one, a lot of Googling. Number one, splitting your big goal into small tasks. Number two, within every single task, I would get stuck because there was something completely new. I had to learn Docker. I had to learn AWS. I had to learn a lot of bash programming. I had to learn CloudFormation on AWS. How does ECR work? And a lot of interesting tools and the services that I've never used in my life. And even at some point of the time, there was twice when I had no one to help me with. What I did, I have built a similar infrastructure that I've built for my company separately on my personal account on AWS. And I have hired someone from Fiverr to help me to solve this problem on my account, on my personal data, nothing related to the company, because that would be non-legal. And the guy helped me to solve it in my account. And then I applied the knowledge to my company's account, and I did get through it. So that was my biggest challenge. And by answering this question, I did show that I will solve any problem, whatever it takes. I just need resources. And that's pretty much what happened.
Like, can you tell about all of that you just mentioned during the interview?
Well, yeah, I can tell that because I did not show any company data. I have built a similar infrastructure with my personal data, and I've hired someone to solve the problem. And based on a solution for that problem, the guy did not see anything that he was not supposed to see. As I did sign NDA, I did show my account, similar infrastructure, but completely different data. And it was halfway built during that time. So he helped me to solve that problem. And then I've came back to the company infrastructure, and I have solved the problem that we had. That was the biggest challenge that I had, and how I overcame it.
If I could answer the question, sorry, you can go ahead if you want.
No, go ahead, Angelina, please.
Yeah,
Take it
we're
away.
just keep interrupting each other here. So if I would answer, and I actually, the way I answered for all the 4 times this question is that when the manager or senior or team lead or developer says it's not a bug, but you filed it as a bug, and then they're saying, okay, this is not a bug, so what should you do? So from my perspective as a QA engineer, I would give as much information as I can, different screenshots, videos recorded, even with the explanation of the things you're showing on the screen with your voice, and showing acceptance criteria, showing the screenshot, and showing the steps, the repro steps, right? Do everything that you can from your side to make sure that that person understands why you filed it as a bug. Probably it's not a bug, could be a great enhancement like in the future for this or that feature, but definitely do the best from yourself and be respectful. That person is a team lead or a manager because of the reason. So probably if they are saying it's not a bug, just saying, okay, yeah, we can work on it and just keep going.
Yeah, I think for me, I remember at my last position at Abbott, a lot of the knowledge that they had was kind of like tribal knowledge. Like you had to find out who knew this or knew that, and they didn't really have a place where it was organized. So one of the things was kind of like creating like a Google folder where we'd have kind of like all of these common Word documents and kind of step-by-step tutorials of organizing information so that we wouldn't have to go down chasing people, because that was like a very regular thing that I had to do. And a lot of that too is kind of like it seems like every time someone starts a position, you're flooded with all this information, right? All this stuff that you have to do, all this new stuff you have to learn, all this, I changed to this new voter system. So it's like I've got this whole new industry I need to learn about. And I think an important thing that helped me get through it and I think is useful is to always ask questions. And I think at the end of the day, if your team knows that you're in it for them and you're working hard and you're putting in the effort and you're learning, that drive is going to be appreciated and they're going to be there to help you. So ask as many questions as you can. Um, I think that's probably one of my biggest tips. And try to organize what you're learning into. Take notes like you're starting a class. If you've got meetings, take notes during the meetings. Pull your manager to the side or the other SMEs if you have them for a minute. Ask them questions about how things work and try to get really acquainted with all of the different systems. Don't just put yourself in a hole of, oh, this is just what I do, because you're never going to learn like that. So talk to people, explore, and get that information and internalize it as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely, full agree with that. And that's actually how you become a lead and a manager and so on and so on. Because usually there are 2 ways to grow as the QA engineer. First way, as Art said, just try to learn as much as possible and become a point of knowledge in your team. So first you go to talk to everyone, you pick up their brains. Later you become an expert in an entire application, and probably you're going to be one of the only experts and the best experts because you test it on a daily basis. And then developer is going to come to you, and lead's going to come to you, and even the manager is going to come to you with the questions. And when they come, they're like, okay, I come to this guy or this girl with the questions. That's my next pick for the lead position. And that's how you become one. Or you can go into technical world and become a key automation engineer lead, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
All righty.
I think it's just like back to that same point that we talked about. It's like providing solutions, the more you can create yourself to be an asset and provide solutions, the more important you are, and the better off you are.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have a question, if you don't mind. Well, the interview
Absolutely.
not for myself. So the interview question I got during my last interview, it was a question regarding the teams. So they asked me, what do you like most, working in a big team or working in a small team, like small agile team? What is your favorite? And it was a tricky one because I was coming from a big team into the small team. So should I say, oh, yeah, of course, I love working with a small team. Agile team is my favorite. you know? So, what would be your answer?
Great question. And definitely, so there are 2 things here. One thing that they are looking for, and the next thing that you should be giving them. what they're looking for into how you like the small teams, as you already mentioned. But what you should say that every team has every way has its own advantages. I worked in the big teams and in the small teams, and in the small teams you wear a lot of hats, and that's cool because you can learn a lot about the different parts of the processes. And in the large teams, you go deeply into small piece that you are assigned to. So that's another advantage. So you kind of have worked everywhere and you've learned quite a few things. So you know it at the large scale and the low scale. But honestly, there is no preference on my side. But I do like to learn a lot. So working in a small team will give me another advantage, another chance of wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, I would argue that big teams are built up by small teams. You have small teams that turn into big teams. So if you're in a big team, you're obviously going to specialize, and you're going to have your smaller group of people that you work with. And I think it's important to kind of build those relationships. I like close relationships with people that I work a lot. But also, I think a small team inside of a bigger team, if I can meet with my big team every 6 weeks and meet with my small team daily, that's kind of where I'm happiest.
Nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I fully agree that this answer is better for this particular case. 100%. You're hired.
Yes.
Oh, we have a list of questions from your group, Art. From
Nice.
from Gan Lee.
Oh, I remember Gan.
The guy. Yeah, video with him you guys can find right here. He is an amazing guy. Let's see. And the question that he had, how do you envision your UA department moving forward?
What is the position he was interviewing for?
I don't remember honestly, but
Director of
that's an
QA.
interesting question.
The area of technology.
I would say for my side, we've done a lot of manual testing. I think our next kind of steps are working with more real data. So kind of getting real voter information, getting that in there, and then starting to write automation scripts, And the challenge with Los Angeles is we have so many voters. We have millions and millions of voters. So not only does the software need to look good, work well, but it needs to work fast. And you need to go through a bunch of records. So we have a lot of performance testing that needs to be done. Also, this seems like a small thing, but when you're working with people that do the same operations over and over again, making sure that that UI flow is as efficient and quick as possible, keyboard shortcuts, because they're going to be done thousands of hundreds of thousands of times. So that's something I think moving forward that we're going to have to look at more as a group.
Yeah,
Makes a lot of sense.
And from my perspective, working right now in the company where I am, so my answer for this question would be transitioning our team from manual to automation. That would, help us to achieve faster and greater results for the product we are working on. So that would be a transformation like that.
Yep. That's also a good point. Definitely agree with that. Yeah, for this question, there is no perfect answer because everyone will have their own answer based on the situation that they have.
We were picking like the right answers or no? Because at the end of this call right now, we're just picking the best answer. That was the point of it, or no?
No, not really. We're just giving feedback and giving and trying to find how to improve our answers. For example, when I said that, both small size group teams and a large size teams are great, and Art was like, yeah, that's cool, but I completely disagree with that. And he gave his answer, and I fully agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree with his answer. So the goal of this interview is to find better answers for the people on the other side of the screen, because they're going to be watching it and they'll be like, okay, that's cool that this guy says that, but the other guy says that, and Angelina says completely different thing. So they have a different perspectives from the professionals from the market, because you guys are better professionals than I am now. So I'm more listening to your stories and your answers and kind of giving my feedback on the side as well.
Thank you for the answer, but that was a joke.
Yeah, and I think
all right.
I think it's like when you're because they may be looking for a certain answer that they may deem as the right answer, but I think at the end of the day, getting like a fresh perspective. So if you have, I would say give two answers. Give the answer that you think they want, and then give a different answer of like, well, this is kind of my own take on it, and they can see that you can kind of think outside of the box and you have a fresh perspective because that's useful on a team. That creativity is very valuable to them. Yeah. So I would say give multiple answers if you have to. Be creative with some of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the best way to go, to give them multiple answers, to show multiple perspectives. What's your debugging process when you find and report a bug? What's your debugging process? That's pretty interesting because there can be wide range of debugging steps, and based on your experience, we could hear quite a few different answers. Like when you find a bug, what's your steps to debug it?
I don't like the word debug or fix. Like, I think that's what developers should do. Like, you just debug, you know?
Well, yeah, you can think.
Do you mean like how you would go about reporting it and creating a bug report and all that, or are you talking about actually like working on it?
I'm talking. No, I'm talking about finding a root cause. So to debug, usually would be to find not to fix an issue, but to find the root cause, to actually dig into an issue, to bring as much details as possible for the developer.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty easy one. I think the junior QAs can answer that question easily, especially after your QA bootcamp, because that's a core thing when you do it. But for most of the junior, especially QAs, debugging and fixing sort of hard to understand phrases or words. So usually when I found a bug, I think I found a bug. So I go back to acceptance criteria. If we have test cases, go through the test case, retest it again and again, use different browsers, different platforms, use API if you need. Yeah, just do everything that you have that might pop up in your mind. Be creative and read the steps, repro the steps, file the bug, go over again if you're not sure. And also, don't forget about the screenshots and video recording. That would pretty helpful for the developers.
I think Angelina covered it pretty well. To add on to that, I would say in Chrome, I would look in developer tools, kind of look at the network tabs, all those different tabs, see what's breaking, what's not working, and also take screenshots of those. That might be very helpful to the developers as well.
Absolutely. Did we specify server logs? We didn't talk about it. Okay, cool. So yeah, I would just add one more thing on the top, just to check the server logs, because sometimes your API response will not contain things that will be stored in the server log. So when you check the server log, you might see an actual answer. Because I remember I would working for one of the largest corporations in the world that I worked for. I would get a 500 from the API response, but I would get to the server logs and it would tell me something like, hey, your email is too long or something. And devs just didn't encounter this type of issue. They should have had unit tests for it. But generally speaking, server logs will usually give you a little more details than just API response. And in the world of mobile, you can use the same thing, or you can also pull the application logs, which could like Android or iOS logs, which could also be very helpful. Sorry, I interrupted you, Angelina.
Oh, no. I was thinking that probably would be a good point to add here. If you are a QA who understands the code or who can write a code, so the repository that developers have could be a good thing to look through and check on some things if you understand it. If you're automation, I guess. But that's a good thing that helped me sometimes.
Absolutely. And I love it, honestly. Last couple of companies I worked for, I would always get access or ask for access to dev's repo. I would look into every single pull request, that every single feature that was developed. I would look into it. I would try to understand it. And later when I would find the bugs, I would go back to the pull request and I would try to pinpoint, oh, that's where the issue is coming from. So that's sort of the white box testing already, but it's interesting. When you work in test automation for a while, you gain more interest in understanding in coding. You gonna naturally, if you like it, you're gonna naturally start digging into it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get like 3 more questions, I think, and then we can call it quit because we've been almost running this webinar for an hour or this call for an hour and a half. And I think people are going to love it, but I think we need to get some food too. Oh, that's a good one. Can you give me an example or two when you help improve the efficiency of how the team was testing their software?
That's a good
That's a
question.
good one. That's a good one.
So basically, it's means that you saw that something runs not pretty smoothly, so you just give an idea or something that can help a team to get it faster.
Yeah, and that would probably be more related to the team's testing processes. When I started reading it, I realized, okay, we could potentially give this answer. Just for example, I don't remember where I worked, but anyways, we had one QA environment and we had 6 pods, 6 teams. And devs would all put their new updates into QA environment and everyone would test their software in the QA environment. But multiple times, pretty much every week, we would run into an issue where some of the pods developers, they merge the code into new release branch and create a new environment and create updated QA environment. And that would break an entire environment. And people would wait for a while, would figure out what's broken. So based on you seeing those kind of scenarios multiple times, you're like, okay, we gotta think how to avoid this. We gotta do RCA, root cause analysis. And by doing root cause analysis, we figured out that we need to create multiple environments. So every team would have team environment first. They would test their software in the team environment, make sure nothing is breaking the entire app. And only then they would put it into QA environment where other pods keep their updates to the current version of the software. That's the answer that I could give based on my experience.
Yeah, I think based on my experience, one of the things that we struggled with was a lot of our SMEs had this knowledge in their head of how things go down, but no one else, including the developers, knew how this worked. So me and my other bot team members were tasked with I'd never done this before, but we were creating Visio flowcharts of the process to kind of get it mapped down. And based on this, not only were other people who weren't familiar with the process were able to see it in a visually easier way to digest, but also developers were able to help develop off of that and have their flows shown. So that was something that was super helpful for us. And they made it a lot more efficient because when everyone understands the process, it's easier for us to test it because we know how it's supposed to look. It's also easier for developers because, they're able to see the flow of things.
Great point.
Yeah, nice. And based on my experience, I would suggest to add test cases into the process because it could help newcomers who are gonna join the team. So they don't need to figure out most of the things by themselves. It would be easier just go through the test cases and acceptance criteria to figure out the things. So that could be a good point.
Absolutely. And I love these types of interviews because people have just heard 3 different answers they could potentially give to somewhat complicated question if you do not have any experience, if you're coming from the bootcamp. So if you guys are enjoying it, and I'm 100% sure you are, leave a comment below, more than 7 words. Tell us how amazing this interview is. Subscribe to our channel and also hit that share button and share it with your QA friends or those who are thinking of becoming one. That's one of the most important if you want this video to be more popular in the world of YouTube, and we do know that it's going to be the most popular one. Cool. Let's go through 2 more questions and then I will let us go because hungry? That's an interview question that one of our students got. It's a pre-screened questions. Honestly, it's nothing technical, but she got stuck a little bit. Tell us pretty much about a time where you were responsible about choosing the way team was doing manual testing, if there was such a time.
Yes,
That's kind of interesting. Even made me thinking.
Yeah, so I think in my current position, that's kind of all I do is write like manual test cases for other people to write. So it's really a question of like, what are we writing? How are we going to write these test cases? So I think like standard practice is you want to go through a flow that you would kind of expect. So I think with manual testing, for our purposes, because it's already UAT, I think of it more as like an end-to-end process, you know? I'm not looking at one specific thing, but I'm thinking about how this piece fits into everything. So what's the flow that they would go through when writing that manual test? And then kind of with that, you're kind of looking at what are the happy path? You know, what's the normal path that you think most of the time is going to be taken? And then I also have to account for edge cases. What are the very weird edge cases that could happen that this software is going to be used for or can be used to do? And those are things that you also need to kind of rely on your SMEs of what's the real world experience of how this is going to be used, and kind of build those manual tests to reflect, how it's going to be used in a real world environment.
Yeah, I would also add that it depends on the release and on the weak points of the product. So every test lead and manager and whoever working in a company and taking care of the process, they know the weak points of the app or everything you work on. So I'd say taking care of the weak points, and then continue with other. It helps a lot. This is something that I was dealing with during of one of my previous jobs when I used to work in a small agile team, and I was one of two QAs we had in a team, and I was sort of a team lead. So you need to prioritize and work on the weak points first.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that too, you kind of want to really focus on elements that are changing quickly that you may not be good candidates for automation. So that's why you're manually testing them in the first place. But also you have to keep in mind, there's limited resources as far as running manual test cases because they do take longer to run. So keeping those ideas in mind, managing all that.
Absolutely. And I want to come back to the question of my biggest achievements because I did not have answer to this question, and you guys gave an amazing answer. So I'm super happy to see that you have a lot more knowledge than me now. I'm really grateful for that.
You're just being
I'm really
shy.
grateful
Yeah,
for that.
you're just being kind. You're just being too kind.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you guys the last question. If you would start your engineering path from scratch, how would you make it as efficient as possible? Or what would you change? How do you make it as efficient as possible?
I'd
Because
say
all of those people who go ahead.
I'd say
I was gonna say that you go ahead.
okay. This is getting way more funny right now. Okay, I'm gonna start. So first of all, I'm not gonna choose any other bootcamp than yours. I wouldn't go to any other place because I know this is the place where you can just get a course and then get a job. So don't look out for something else. You're here, right place, click the link, and you're here. In just a few months and you have a good job. But of course, I'd say for myself, it's totally different for everybody. But when I started my career as a QA, I started only with manual. I didn't learn automation at all, and that was my weak point, I guess. So I would start with both. This what works for me, and I think would work for me better than I did. But I'm happy where I am right now, and definitely keep going and keep learning every single day. Something is new, so you just need to be on the top of information. But definitely for me, it's not just dig in one hole. You just need to get it all together.
Absolutely. I would do the same thing, manual and automation in the beginning, and I would definitely sign up for Commify course. Thank you for that free advertisement. How about you, Art?
I think for me, one of the things is kind of like continually, like when you're in the boot camp, I would have taken that a lot sooner. So start that as soon as possible, and then have that same mentality of constantly learning. And the problem is, I think, and this happens with a lot of people, and I've seen it with a lot of my friends, you work hard, you study, you get into a position, and then ultimately you have that period, 3-month period where you're learning a lot, and then you hit this like area where you're kind of settled into your job position and you get comfortable. But I think the mistake there is, if you really want to be efficient, is to continue to learn. So wake up a couple hours earlier, study a new whatever course, another boot camp, whatever. Or maybe if you guys do a developer boot camp, like I was asking you about, Sergey, maybe you take that course. But to continue learning, and because you cover a broad spectrum of topics in the boot camp, but I think then's the time to like get deeper into writing scripts and code, get deeper into those different concepts. So I would say, to be more efficient, don't take the foot off the gas, keep it going.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. And to add up to that, development bootcamp, right now, I'm working with another full stack developer on the curriculum for the bootcamp that starts soon. So if you guys are interested in a full stack development course, leave a message right below this video, and we're going to be kicking off soon, and I'll reach out to you when it's ready, and you'll get 50% off as the first beta group.
Wow.
As full stack developer.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sign me up.
Alrighty, well, you are in. You're in that list. You're the first person on the list. Alrighty. Did you guys have anything you wanted to share with the people who are going to be watching this video, or should we peacefully go and I'll get a breakfast here on Bali because it's already 9:36 and I'm starving.
I would say one last thing is, I know sometimes you'll have like negative thoughts, like you're not able to do this, it's too much, you're not good enough for this, or it's too compacted. But I would say ignore those, put your head down and keep studying. And over time, you're going to notice that knowledge is going to be in there. So I'd say don't give up, don't focus on that, and just keep pushing. Keep pushing.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree. Don't give up and just keep going. And think the best of yourself as you can, because you need to be confident, and don't think that, okay, I'm stupid, I can't understand that or that. You are smart, you are confident, you are best QA engineer in the world. So this is how you get your job.
Let's go. That's an attitude. Thank you, guys. You are literally awesome. It was such a pleasure to hear you and see you again. This is definitely going to become the most popular interview preparation video for QAs and SDETs in the YouTube. And thanks to all of those likes and subscribes and the comments from those people who are watching us right now. Thank you, guys. And we shall catch you again for another one.
Thanks, guys.